Jackson, Kobe, and Matt are with me for this one, but Jackson, we'll start with you as well. Given how much he's accomplished throughout his career and the deep respect many have for him throughout the IndyCar paddock, is Mark Miles correct to say that Doug Boles is the right person for this moment in the series history?
Absolutely, Josh. And for me, it starts on the charisma side of things. You're talking about a guy who has not only major love among the IndyCar people, but among the Speedway, among the people in the state of Indiana. The guy has his own Indy Roadster collection. He drives around downtown Indiana in it. You'll see it on X Blue Sky timelines. This is a guy that has literally grown up into the sport, into the race, and he has a love for this sport that I think is reflective of the fans. And I think that's another major aspect that we're going to see compared to IndyCar presidents of old. Regardless of how this tenure goes, you are going to be hearing more from Doug Boles, I think, than anybody else. But this is a guy that, as you said, Josh, sold out for the 100th running of the Indy 500. He knows how to put this race on. And I think the big thing that stands out for me, one of the big things that stands out for me, is how this guy is going to be able to bring that excitement of Indy over to the remainder of IndyCar races in America and beyond. The really kind of key essence of it for me right now, though, is the choices that other series are making. And I really want to focus on NASCAR right now and how they are treating themselves as a culture and a series. And you know, there's always going to be some controversy when you're branching outside of the USA and doing experimental things and changing your series. But when NASCAR has the Clash in its all-star race at the center point of its existence, where the sport was conceived, you can go do cool stuff. You can go run in CDMX and go try cool new things. I'm not saying the solution is a Clash or an all-star race adjacent for IndyCar, but we can go internationally more. IndyCar is still kind of in this existential crisis since this merger back in 2008, that finding that spectrum of how Formula One and how much of a NASCAR you're going to be. I think Doug internally has this vision of what IndyCar is, what its culture is, what this sport is, and he is going to do a fantastic job of spreading that mentality outside of Indiana.
Excellent, Jackson. I couldn't agree more with what you said. And I know people like to throw the term people's champion around loosely, but if I had to call someone the people's champion, that would be Doug Boles. Like you were saying, he's really good. He's really good with the fans. Like if you're a fan talking to him and he's talking back to you, it's like he's actually hearing you and listening to what you're saying, you know, instead of be like, I know what's best for you, so I'm just going to give it to you. He actually comes across as a person who is open to feedback, open into listening to what you feel is best for a series, and then just doing what he can do. And Josh, you were mentioning all of his accomplishments. Like Doug Boles, he's Mr. IMS because he's been there for a while, and he's done some incredible things with the Speedway to make the Indianapolis 500 bigger and better than it's ever been, and also a lot of improvements to the track infrastructure as well. And the people who have been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the last couple of years have given it rave reviews of, you know, all of the improvements that Doug has oversaw. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can do for the IndyCar series as a whole, because he takes his job at IMS very seriously. And if you've been watching races at IMS over the last decade or so, whenever there's like a problem on track, you'll see the safety workers, and then you'll see this guy with his suit and tie, you know, come out there on the track. And that guy, the suit and tie and glasses, that is Doug Boles. He wants to be up close and personal and see what's going on firsthand. And I think that's the type of mentality that he's going to have as the president of IndyCar, that he's gonna go out there, roll up his sleeves and get to work and try to do the best job that he possibly can. And out of all the potential candidates out there in IndyCar who could have been named new president of IndyCar, I think Doug Boles is probably the best person that they could have come up with. Really looking forward to seeing what he can accomplish, picking right up from Jay Frye.
Evening, everyone. As soon as I saw this news breaking earlier in the week, I was like, yes, this is good news. It's a positive move from the series for the series. As Jackson was saying, you know, Indianapolis is its own beast for the 500, but they just need to keep branching that out across the rest of the year. And I don't want to be Nancy negative on this, but did we not have a similar conversation when Roger Penske bought the series and all of those things 3 years ago, and most of the year last year off track, all we did was bash IndyCar for things that were happening. So just pump the brakes a little bit. But I don't want to be that person. But we've been in this position before where we've gone, yeah, something's happening, and then nothing really happened.
And I want to jump in on that really quick, Matt, because I
course.
really do want to agree with you. But again, this is a guy that wants this series to succeed. And I think the big thing that stands out to me was the fact that both the series and the Speedway is a package. You can't run one, you got to run both. That is immediately, for me, future-proofing this and making sure we don't have a kind of schism. We don't have another civil war like last year. That's definitely making it possible. And I know with certain talks last year, there was a fear of that. But again, you will have to do some big digging to find a guy that does not like Doug Boles in the paddock.
Sure.
I think he's genuinely going to listen to everyone, drivers, teams, event organizers, fans. He is going to do everything he can to make this the best series possible. And just off of the resume alone for me, Matt, what sticks out is, again, just how much he's been accountable and how much he's already listened to make the 500 the best it can be. So it's going to be really exciting, in my opinion, to see what he can do with the remainder of the IndyCar series.
Absolutely. And I think as well, Matt, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I don't disagree with anything that anyone said. I just don't want to be in the position that we were.
You always got to take it with a pinch of salt, right? It's IndyCar, but hard to complain.
This was a grand slam move with IndyCar. Doug Boles is incredible and amazing, says Adam as well. I agree. And Matthew Owens behind the mic says he's going to be great. And when they start taking applications for president of the Speedway, I'll hand them my resume as well. I thought he'd more likely want to be in Daytona, but he would be good.
Yeah,
as,
we might have to go for the PA role first and then work your way up, Matt. We'll see.
Yeah. Other notable changes within Penske Entertainment's leadership structure, of course, we've got Mark Silber is now being promoted to the senior vice president of IndyCar competition and development. Kyle Novak will become IndyCar's vice president and officiating and race control. In addition to continuing his duties as the vice president of corporate communications, in addition to continuing his duties, I've read that twice for Penske Entertainment. Now, Alex Dameron as well will be IndyCar's chief marketing officer, and Lewis Kissinger will also be promoted to general manager of operations at IMS. Now, looking at the now former president of IndyCar, Jay Frye, he leaves this position after a decade leading IndyCar through some quite consequential times as well. Frye helped secure entitlement series sponsorships with Verizon and Entity Data, the development of the Universal Aero kit, the introduction of the Aero screen, and getting the ball rolling with the hybrid engines debuting last summer. Frye also oversaw an expanded grid that resulted in a charter system debuting this year. And entering 2025 season, there's a lot of optimism surrounding IndyCar's new partnership with Fox Sports. Pato Awards recently appeared, of course, in a commercial during the Super Bowl. Joseph Newgarden attended the Super Bowl last Sunday in New Orleans as well. So, Matt, starting with you on this one, does Jay Frye deserve credit for the good moments that occurred during his tenure of leadership, or criticism for missed opportunities to move IndyCar forward?
I mean, as you've listed there, plenty of things have gone under the bridge, haven't they, in the last few years in the IndyCar world. I saw Graham Rahal earlier in the week jumping to praise Jay on X, saying it's a big loss to have him leaving. So lots and lots of things have happened. With all of that, we've still got a car that's 13 years old. As a base, I know lots of things have changed in and around it, but we're still there with that. Hopefully, with the progression of what's going on in the IndyCar world over the last 6 to 8 months, we can get somewhere with that coming up, hopefully, and that'll all fall into Boles' hands as well. But there has been, just so many things. All the stuff at the 500, the hybrid, even last year, just as it on its own thing. The whole Penske stuff at St. Pete at the beginning of the year. We had the thermal $1 million challenge last year. Of course, Jackson was there on site. So big things going on in IndyCar over the last few years. Perhaps doesn't get the credit that he should have for the things that have happened. IndyCar's still at a level. It does need to jump up more. maybe, like with a lot of things, time. He needed a shuffle, and they've done it, 3 or 4 weeks out from the beginning of this year's kickoff in St. Pete. So, well done. Thank you to Jay Frye.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely give Jay Frye his flowers here. By all means, he wasn't a bad president of IndyCar, but at all. Josh, you listed all of his accomplishments. Getting those entitlement sponsored with Verizon Entity, that were really good. Then the Universal Aero Kit, that was really important. I remember when they first announced those, people were really excited because give them an old school look back to those Indy cars, because we all remember the Aero Kit right before the Aero Kit we have now. Honda and Chevrolet were getting kind of creative, getting kind of funky. And I remember one practice session in St. Pete, I think it was the first race with this, with the previous Aero Kit, that they had pieces and all over the racetrack and stuff. It just got kind of messy. So to have a simplified Aero Kit was really important here for the series. And then the Aero Screen, don't have to say much about that. We've seen many different cases in the last few seasons of how wonderful the Aero Screen has been. So Jay overseeing that, well done with that. And then the hybrid engines, they had issues when at the very beginning of that, and Jay Frye, under his leadership, he was a part of the group of leaders at IndyCar who decided that it's best not to debut this at St. Pete. We need to give it a few more months to work through these teething issues. And although, not necessarily the best look to do that, it ended up being the right decision, because if you showed up to St. Pete and had a whole bunch of engine issues, that would have been an embarrassing moment for the series. But yeah, we still had some teething issues with the hybrid engine, but that's to be expected. But for the most part, it ran really well last year, and it seemed to get better throughout the season. The teams have had a lot of data on that now, and they've had an entire off season to continue developing the new hybrid system. And I'm sure it'll be even better this season. So I think Jay Frye deserves a lot of credit for all he's done there. And then Doug Boles, he's as you mentioned, Matt, he's going to have a lot on his plate coming up, because like you mentioned, how we've had the same car for, the longest time now. And by the end of this decade, we should have a brand new IndyCar chassis. I think maybe 2027, 2028, 2029, when we should have that new car coming online. And I remember reading an article from Racer.com from Marshall Pruitt a few months ago, how some of the teams saw the first rendering of this new car and they weren't really pleased about it at all. And a lot of them were complaining about the back end of the car, because they said it looks very similar to the current FIA Formula 2 car, which the teams did not like at all. So maybe Doug Boles will have a different vision and ask the designers to go back to the drawing board and try to find something that the teams really want. I think they also want a car that's lighter, lose a whole bunch of weight that's on the car. So maybe that'll be something as well. And there's also a lot of opportunities that Doug Boles can help grow the series, in terms of marketing, and because this is a great series with great personalities. And I guess when you really think about it, IndyCar hasn't reached its true potential yet, but if they hit it right, I think IndyCar has great potential in the future to grow both here at home in America and abroad internationally as well. But in regards to Jay Frye being replaced by Doug Boles, I don't see it as a case, that Jay Frye failed, as president of IndyCar, that he failed in the way of not helping the series reach its true potential. I see it as, I hate to use a stick and ball sports example here, but it's like you have a solid coach, that can get you to the playoffs every year. But the thing is, he can get you to the playoffs. He can potentially get you to a deep playoff run, but he can't get you to the Super Bowl. He can't get you to the NBA Finals. He can't get you to the World Series. So you try to bring in this new person who can potentially get you over the hump. So that's how I see the replacement of Doug Boles, who's taken over for Jay Frye.
Yeah, and I think you've got to realize how much this guy was thrown into the storm. Originally had a major marketing background, helped with, way back the Brian Vickers days of the Red Bull NASCAR program, as you remember, Kobe. But this is a guy that was thrown in to kind of pick up the pieces from Randy Bernard and the Vegas tragedy in 2011. And he's a guy that kept the lights on for nearly a decade, when really we didn't know what the future of IndyCar was even going to look like, if it was going to be something at all. So I think for me, what really sticks out is, I know this is an old car. I know we've complained about how much we've wanted one forever. And that's not to say that Randy Bernard Jay has done everything in his power to, one, make it as fresh and unique as possible. And that wasn't something that was told to him by Mark Miles. This is all stuff that Jay did himself that was based on the cards that were dealt to him by Mark Miles. So the new, making that move in 2015 over to the manufacturer aero kits, have Chevy and Honda develop their own aerodynamics, then move back to the universal aero kit in 2018, have it look absolutely phenomenal, bring in the aero screen in, 2020, 2021. And the amount of, as you mentioned, Kobe, the amount of lives that has undoubtedly saved in just half a decade of that being around. And you look into the coulda, shoulda, woulda's, the updated engine regulations and, trying to get the hybrid in as soon as possible before COVID and squeezing that in. All of this was kind of to try and make that appeal to a third OEM as high as possible. And unfortunately, as much as Jay tried to help Mark Miles, nothing couldn't be done there. And we will ultimately think we won't find out the full reasonings behind that for a while. But I think for me, what stands out is, one, he absolutely deserves his flowers. But two, I think you can pin it on a couple of things over the past couple of years that have maybe been the final nails in the coffin, whether it was the charter system, the delay of the hybrid system, the new car prototype. You don't make this kind of move, Josh, with 2 weeks to go, when we're with 2 weeks until St. Petersburg. And that's why I think Jay is unfortunately going to be leaving with a pretty bitter taste in his mouth.
Yeah, it's kind of a big thing to do, as you say, 2 weeks before everything kicks off again. But if there's any pair of hands you have to fall into, I think Doug's is the safest you can have for a while. Let's hope it does move forward, especially as we've seen, certainly from the TV side, that Fox is getting ready to cover. They've had a preseason test commentary to make sure the box gels, and I think it's going to be okay.
Really quickly, before we move on, Alex Dameron absolutely deserves his flowers for getting this promotion also to CMO. Major guy that helped out in the background with getting that Fox deal going and helping organize the content there. So, we talk so much about the lack of promotion for IndyCar, how we want it to be represented. He's really been the big revolutionary in what you're seeing now on Fox and on socials. Since the start of last season, we've seen that amped up. So very, very happy with Alex and really excited to see what he can do for CMO.
The best news was, as I've been watching a lot of Fox Sports over the past few weeks with Super Bowl, they followed in as well with all of NASCAR's coverage as well at Bowman Gray. The one thing I was really surprised, I did not see one IndyCar advert during NASCAR coverage until today.
Oh.
The first practice session, they showed the Pato Award Super Bowl commercial again, and it was slap bang in between the practice. I thought, that's it. Now we're on it, because you've got to advertise to your racing community. Jackson, we're going to let you go, so I just want to quickly round out with you. Are you looking forward to Sebring? Because they're testing right now. They're ahead of him next week.
So much. Cannot wait. We're actually going to finally see the AMR V12 in action. We were just talking before we went on. They've kind of taken a lot of the restrictions on that off, so we're going to have a really good show, a really good sound as well. So super amped for Sebring. Super excited. The off season for IndyCar is so long. You guys know this. We're 2 weeks out. Finally, we're finally getting there. So can't wait.